Well, hello everyone, I'm Branden Bodendorfer, and you are on Focus. And through the last couple of weeks, we've been providing you tons of different content, focusing on community news, meeting with different leaders in our community, and just trying to celebrate our community as we move through this pandemic. And over the last few weeks, you guys have connected with us in a lot of different ways, and we really appreciate that. And one of the things that we've seen come across social media is you guys connecting with each other about the shows that you're watching. A lot of you guys have been sharing some of those senior pictures to help celebrate the class of 2020. A lot of those pictures have a lot of crazy hairstyles. And I think a lot of those hairstyles are going to come back in style here in the next few weeks, as I was lucky enough to get my hair cut the morning before the mandate came out. But I want to just thank everybody here as you guys practice sheltering at home. It's been something that's really helped flatten the curve in Wisconsin. And Wood County has only had 2 cases. And furthermore, both those people have recovered. So we're getting through this, and we're getting through this rather quickly. Hopefully, this will be something that in short time, we'll be able to look back and it'll just be a flash in our memory. But it's something that we've all had to embrace together. And one thing that we've been able to embrace together is some of the primetime TV shows that come out. Maybe you are a streamer and you get a kick out of some of the new episodes and shows that are on Netflix. There's been one that's gotten a lot of press. But here with On Focus, we've been excited to talk about the new chapter in The Bachelorette or The Bachelor series. Listen to Your Heart aired last night. And today we have a senior correspondent as well as one of our very own to talk about and break down this episode. So I'm going to introduce to you guys two people that I've gotten to know over the last couple of years that have really given us the ability to just kind of help share the news with you, as well as be able to help share some of the things that are taking place in our community. First off, Carrie, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Carrie, tell me a little bit of background. You are from Pittsville, right?
I am Pittsville, Wisconsin, right outside of Marshfield, born and raised, and I'm here right now, sheltering in place here, but I do travel a lot and I've lived all over the country. But for right now, this is where I am.
And today we're going to talk about The Bachelor. But before we get into that, you've been doing podcasts and different social media connectivity and multi-point interaction with people for the last couple of years. What's some of the content that you've been covering, maybe in recent times as well as in the past? What's kind of been your niche or your focus for your audience?
So I see because I love traveling. So a lot of my blog is travel focused, but my podcast is something really different. I'm a journalist and I love storytelling and any kind of thing like that. So I have on people that I've met or friends of mine that I've crossed paths with. And mostly we talk about their career and what they've learned along the way. And we just kind of chat about the ups and downs of being a person and how hard that can be sometimes. So that's basically what it is. It's called Candidly Speaking. And we have new episodes once a week. It's really fun. It's really organic, really chill. It's just me chatting with friends.
Now, a lot of those people that you've been able to connect with over the last few years doing this podcast, have they been mostly people from across the nation, a lot of locals, a mix?
It's been a mix. So a couple of my early guests was Breanna Butler. She was a great guest. She was one of my first guests. I also had on Mike Warren, who is a local media personality. I had my mom on as a guest and my husband. And so some of it's been local, but because I've lived all over the country, I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. So a lot of my colleagues from my TV work in Charlotte have been on, and a lot of the connections I made there. I've had a lot of people from Charlotte on. I've had people from Arizona on, people from Florida. It kind of runs the gamut because I have lived so many places. I've been able to form these friendships with people all over. So literally all over the country.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Breanna, and Breanna is our other guest on the show today. You guys got to know Breanna over the last couple weeks that we've done a couple of these, and Breanna's been with On Focus since the very first day we started. Breanna,
Hi.
what are you kind of been excited about over the last couple weeks as you've been looking at TV shows that are starting to premiere? Has this Bachelor, Listen to Your Heart, been something that's been on your radar?
So I've watched Bachelor for a long time, but honestly, I was not going to watch this one because I thought it looked really dumb. And I didn't think, I don't know, like I say that every season though, that "Oh, I'm not going to watch this because it looks stupid and I need to like get my Monday nights back." But being in quarantine and not having my normal day to day lifestyle, it's comforting to have another Bachelor show that I can pour a glass of wine and sit on the couch on Monday nights and even though the world might be falling apart, Bachelor goes on.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you guys a lot about this show, and I got some questions of myself. So it's my show, so I'm going to kind of run with it a little bit, and eventually you guys will probably take over the conversation.
This is weird because normally like it's Carrie and I just talking Bachelor, and you're kind of like third wheeling.
Yeah, well, I think your husband explained this as a 2-on-1 is what he referred to
It's
this
a
as.
2-on-1.
Yes, it is. So
Oh,
at the end of the show, I'll eliminate one of you. So with that being said, though, I've been following Bachelor for a long period of time, and through that time, I've matured as an adult. And my relationship has matured, and I went from starting the show in the phase of my own life where I was dating someone. I eventually got engaged, got married. Now I have kids, and I've been able to connect with some of the same people that have went through this experience on TV. There'd be different individuals that have met on the show. They got married and now they have children. I still follow some of those people just because for whatever reason, I'm connected to them. And I think that's one thing that's really unique about Bachelor Nation is every year we go through these seasons, but we get attached to these people and we follow them in their real life afterwards. And one question I asked my spouse last season when we were watching The Bachelor was, what's going on with this show? Am I going to be sitting here in 10 years when I'm in my mid 40s thinking, yeah, I'm so excited for Monday night? Or am I going to mature and as someone that likes this show or doesn't like this show, it's just not something that'll appeal to me anymore. And as I was saying that, I started to learn about this show. Listen to your heart. We know that through the Bachelor and Bachelorette, seasons, they usually try to connect individuals from one season to the next season. We prominently see the Bachelor to Bachelorette comes out of the previous season. We see those individuals move on to Bachelor in Paradise. So there's this constant connection. But what's really unique about this show, it's a whole new set of cast members. How do you guys reflect on that? And I'll start with Breanna. I mean, do you feel when you said that you weren't really excited for this show, were you not excited for this show because you didn't know anybody, or it just because the whole show was something different that we're not used to in Bachelor Nation?
Um, I don't know. I guess I didn't want to watch it because I felt like it was another way that they were exploiting me for my viewership time. So it was like an act of protest that I didn't want to watch it. But also I think there is some truth to what you were saying that I mean, I've also like been in a similar situation where I started watching the show when I was in my teens and now I'm married, and it's really it's really changed my perspective of the show. And I think with these like ensemble type cast members where there's not a lead, there is a lot more drama and just like superficial type stupid stuff that I don't it's not as entertaining to me, or I guess I want to act like it's not entertaining to me, but at the end of the day, I guess I do love the drama of it.
Yeah,
So
when
I got started
you talk about a lead there, I don't know, have you guys watched any of the podcasts or video podcasts that Laura Bushman and I think it's Ari started to put out here in the last couple months?
no.
No, they have a podcast?
They have a podcast now, and they just did an episode. It was where Laura interviewed Ari on his season as the Bachelor, and she basically went through behind the scenes. Now, granted, she ended up being his choice at the end of that season, and she asked him some pretty hard questions about some of the girls, and it's obviously the things they all talked about in their relationship, because I think that's one thing as these couples come together, they have to also relive everything they just went through on national TV, and there's that scrutiny and that hardship. I mean, if myself and my wife today had to relive our dating experience and I was dating 24 other women at the same time, I think that'd be very challenging. So it was really good to see those two interact, but they went into talking about the whole behind the scenes. And one thing that really kind of just hit me is they work with so much content. The Bachelor Bachelorette show is a production. I mean, it is meant to be TV, and there always has to be, we think, this villain. And there was a question that she asked did you have to choose a villain? And he flat out said, through the production, there is a lot of times that the producers will encourage you through the selection process, and they will ask you questions no different than some of the contestants ask you questions. And it intrigues your mind and you're just there to try to figure it out. And sometimes those questions lead to you wanting to hold on to that individual or another individual because you want to figure it out. But he said there's a lot of times that through the production that we will redo a scene because, you know, the cameras weren't set up right, or we took a turn right when they were anticipating that we were going to turn left. And he said the other scene that really is staged a lot is because of the camera operation, the lead can't move a lot of times. The lead can't move because the cameras are focused on him. So we always see this grand entrance where these girls are running to him and then they do the jump, right? The jump that we all see. And he goes, that a lot of times is shot over several scenes. And we just saw a video from the last episode where there was a scene where the Bachelor and the contestant were getting on a bus, and I'm not sure which country they were in, but we saw replay of that same scene 5 or 6 times. So we have to keep in mind that the lead has a role in kind of dictating how the story unfolds. But in this show, like you said, Breanna, we don't have that. We have, I think it started out with 20 individuals that were on the show last night, 12 females, 12 men and 8 females. And this week, the females had the lead. So essentially, we're going to see 4 men get eliminated from it, but there was no lead. So when you look at this show versus the history of the other shows, this show I kind of connect with Bachelor Pad a little bit, where there is no lead and there's a lot of different storylines taking place. Did you guys see any stories last night, Carrie, that kind of just popped out or to you, or any moments that were like, hey, this is good TV?
Well, I think that's a loaded question. I feel similar as Breanna did with, I think this show, like the previews and stuff of it looked like absolute trash. I don't think that they like previewed it very well. And I think that they were just doing a disservice to themselves with how they previewed the show. So I was also not looking forward to watching this. And I kind of did it because like I have watched a lot of things on Netflix. Like I'm watched out. I was like, why not? Why not watch this? So I do think it has a Bachelor in Paradise-esque feel to it. And I won't lie, Bachelor in Paradise is probably my favorite of the Bachelor shows because it encompasses a lot of different storylines, and we get to know people from the seasons who maybe didn't get a lot of screen time, and we see their personalities really bloom. And you know, I think Hannah G showed us much more personality in Bachelor in Paradise than she did on Colton's season. She was really boring to me. And Bachelor in Paradise with Dylan, we got to see more of her personality. So I do like the format of this, but the thing I'm struggling with is it, like, so are we, what's the goal and what do you win? Like, do you win love or do you win American Idol? You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm still struggling with like, how do you win this? Because is it love or is it music? I'm confused.
That's a really good point. And they kind of hinted at a little bit that, you know, later in this season, you're going to see them all perform and looks like a big theater, but they haven't really hinted that if there is any type of production or
Winner.
post.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and that's a question to be asked. What is the winner? And will there be more than one winner? Will there be, you know, 3 couples or 2 couples or 4 couples that all leave this with some type of relationship and or some type of music career?
Yeah, I agree
And
too.
we don't know.
Bachelor in Paradise is my favorite too, but I think what's different between this and Bachelor in Paradise is we don't know who the people are. So I think that's going to be challenging for me, and that's what I've really struggled with some of these Netflix shows that I've, you know, dabbled in a little bit, is it takes me so long to figure out who's who that by the time I do, I'm like, it's almost like I have to go back and rewatch it just to see the storylines develop because I'm so focused on who are these people. And so I think that's going to be a challenge with this show too.
And let's just rewind the clock a little bit. You know, we've been through Bachelor, all of us, for a long period of time. And let's talk about the history of Bachelor. It first started with the Bachelorette. What was her name?
Trista and Ryan.
Yeah. And how long ago was that? Was that 15 years ago, 16 years ago?
The early 2000s, I'm pretty sure. It was a different time for sure. When you look back at those episodes, like the baggy suits are like, you know what I mean? Like you can tell the hair and the gel and like the hair, the overly like gelled, like Ross Geller hair is like really in, like it's totally early 2000s, 100%.
And we've seen that show carry on for a number of years. And then they started to segue the show. And I really started watching the show when I believe it was Jason Mesnick was the Bachelor, and that was in like
Great
2009.
season.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was a great season, and I mean, this year, I mean, I felt for Melissa watching this year's final episode and having to reflect on her national breakup, and Jason ended up with Molly. But it was about the same time where we started to see a little bit of deviation in the plot, where they introduced the Bachelor Pad. Do you guys remember the Bachelor Pad?
Mhm.
Yeah,
And that ran for what? I think it was 2, 3 seasons.
I think it was 2.
And, I liked that show, but apparently listening to some of the feedback and reading some of the comments, it just didn't get the ratings that they were hoping for. What was your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I
I
thought
think
it
it
was
was
kind of a flop.
Yeah, I think it was confusing to the viewers. Is this a game show? So the thing about Bachelor Pad is that there was a prize. The prize was money. You won like $250,000 or whatever. So there was a prize to be had, but then there was also like this component of love. So it's like, what are we after? It's one or the other. I think Winter Games, when they did Winter Games, what they did differently is they didn't put like a money component in it. You know what I mean? Winter Games was just a fun thing that they did. And the whole basis of it was still love, but it was still just to go have some fun. But there was no like, the money component, I think, with Bachelor Pad is where they went wrong, 100%.
Yeah.
And, that's a good point that you bring that up. Now let's talk a little bit about ratings during that period of time. Just looking back at some of the rating numbers from Bachelor season way back in the beginning, the early 2000s, do you think that the ratings have declined over the years just by your instinct, or do you think that ratings have increased? What do you think, Breanna?
I'm gonna guess that they've increased.
I'm going to guess that they have stayed relatively steady. I actually think that ratings have probably gone down because honestly, in the early 2000s, there were no streaming services. There was no, if I wanted to watch Trista and Ryan, I had to watch it on Monday nights at 7. Now I can watch it on Hulu, and those ratings aren't always mixed into the factor of like how many people turn on their TV. So I'm going to say it went down.
It has. It's actually, according to Wikipedia and some of the ratings that are being posted on there, they're actually down half. There was in 2002, 2003, in those seasons when they were actually, remember when they were on, there was a few years where they were on Wednesday nights. They had ratings that were 11, 10, 12 million. And now the premiere this year was only at 6 million. And the premiere for last year's episode for Bachelor was at 5. So my question throughout all this is, do they recognize the same questions that I asked? As an audience member, am I going to carry on this show? So are they trying to introduce us to different content in different means? And we see throughout our own platform, and Breanna and I talked about this a lot over the last couple of weeks as we've been in quarantine, is how do we take our content and really mix it up so that we bring different people into the storyline and help them share that. And we've done that in a number of different ways, by introducing these podcasts, by doing videos, by doing more articles, and even by trying to connect with different people. If it be people in the religious community, those in public safety, those that are in food service, those that are, trying to help virtually educate our students. So it's just trying to bring people into the mix. And that's what when I looked at this show and I saw the initial premiere, I looked at Heather, my wife, and I said, that's what they're doing. They're trying to get me to like something, because there's so many people out there that watch these music shows and they're of an older demographic. So they're trying to pull that audience back in. And I think that is where they are creatively maybe on the right track. But I, at the same time, was like, I don't know how many times you can take the same storyline of someone falling in love on TV and make it a hit show. And as I was starting to see the show come together last night in the first 15 minutes, I personally thought, like, okay, this is the same plot as The Bachelor and Bachelorette. It's the same grand entrance, the same, short little stories trying to connect me to the individual. And I was like, okay, so it's just basically another season to get me between The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. No different than like Dancing the Stars kind of holds on to you. What did you guys feel, Breanna, when you first saw that first person show up at, in this case, the Listen to Your Heart mansion?
Well, I'm always excited to see Chris Harrison, so I'm pretty sure I would watch anything that he hosts. So even though it's maybe a rerun, like I said earlier, there is some sort of comfort to it. It's predictable enough that it's like junk food for your viewing mind. You don't have to think about it too hard. You know the formula, you know the plots that they're going to play, but in I've watched it over and over and over for years and I don't get bored of it. So I think that what they're doing is smart. They're kind of taking this long proven formula and trying to deviate just enough to see if it makes a difference.
And Carrie, comment on what Bree said there, but in addition, what do you think of some of the talent? I mean, we could tell a little bit that some of these people definitely had a little bit of music background for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that The Bachelor has, for the most part, been a cash cow. And so, of course, they're going to try and see how they can exploit that as much as possible. That's just show business, you know? And I do think that, there's a saying in business that if you're not evolving, you're dying. So the businesses in our culture that refuse to evolve, eventually they die off because our culture changes, paradigm shift, and people, technology changes. So yeah, you have to evolve. There was a big movement in like the 90s when all the camera companies were going to digital. You remember when digital cameras first came out and it was like, whoa, who fought that was Kodak. Kodak was like,
Who's
no,
Kodak?
that's not. Yeah, exactly. And no one, Canon, Nikon, all these companies passed them up because they refused to evolve that digital was the future. And so they fell behind and they have not ceased to exist, but they are nowhere near what they were when it comes to the camera field. So The Bachelor, any smart business or anything like that, you have to evolve. And I think they're trying to learn how to do that. I agree with Bree that I'll watch Chris Harrison read like the dictionary probably because I just love him. Um, so I love what they're trying to do. And yeah, some of these people have real talent. And one of my gripes with The Bachelor and the contestants that they pick in the past for these shows is that they have no talent, that they're just good looking and slim and but other than that, they don't have any other talents and they just become Instagram famous. And, so I'm not about giving untalented people like a platform so that they can just spread more like influencer culture into the world. But these people actually do have talent. So I like that maybe this could be a platform from them. I don't know.
Yeah, I like
And
you.
Sorry, the one guy
Hey,
even
wait
mentioned
a minute, Breanna. Are you at the Bachelor?
At the Bachelor Nation?
I am.
Wow.
Jealous.
For those of you that are not watching this video episode, Breanna updated her background to what is known as the mansion. That usually is where most of the first 4 to 6 weeks where that set is filmed.
Mm-hmm. No, I was going to say the one guy even mentioned that he had been on American Idol and hadn't made it very far. And so I don't know. Another thought I had that I wanted to bring up was, do you remember Jed from Hannah B's season?
How could we forget?
So I had this theory that they did this whole show just to get revenge on him for being such a dick.
Could be.
Really? What's your why that?
No, I'm mostly joking, but just because he went on the show, had a girlfriend, went on the show just to propel his music career, ended up winning, and then Hannah B found out all that stuff, and obviously their relationship didn't work out. But I think it's funny that he intentionally went on the show to advance his music career, and now they have a show that's dedicated to that, essentially.
Yeah, but these people have talent. Jed Wyatt doesn't have talent. He's just he's not good. I mean, I don't know what else to say. He's not good.
He was in a dog food commercial, though.
Oh my gosh, I'll be your Mr. Right. Oh my gosh. Oh.
No, but we have seen that over the years in both Bachelor and Bachelorette, that there has always been, there's been a lot of people that have been models, and we've seen them kind of stand out in their career. And then there has been a lot of musicians that have used their, talents there to try to win the heart of the Bachelor or Bachelorette. And most dominantly, it's been the men that have tried to win the heart of the Bachelorette. So, I mean, I can see where throughout the years they've saw how this has worked and maybe said, hey, let's make it its own show. Last night when I was watching, kind of one thing, and I'll kind of segue here for a second. Carrie, you talked about it being a business, and you talked about having to evolve. And, there's probably no perfect time for a business to evolve. than it is right now. And
Mhm.
for those that are listening today, you're going to want to tune in our next podcast, because the next podcast is we're going to be talking about restarting your business, your re-grand opening. So many businesses have had to basically hit the pause button, and they've had to either close their doors, limit their staff, or simply reinvent their revenue model to stay in existence and stay operating. And there's businesses that have staff that used to all be in a close headquarters and now are shift throughout the community in their homes. And this time has really allowed for a lot of businesses to really think about who they are, and where they're going. And I asked a lot of businesses that I've talked to in the last couple of weeks, is 6 weeks ago, were you happy with your business? Were you happy with the place that you were at? Were you happy with your products and services? Were you happy with the staff and the abilities that they were able to produce? And were you happy with the relationships that you had with your customers? And I said, unless you can answer yes to all of them, your job isn't finished. And this is the perfect time to address some of those situations. And when you reopen, it is a grand reopen. It's a reset button in a lot of means. So if there's ever been a time that marketing is really important, and you hit on it, Carrie, is Kodak. They didn't take that next step and branch out into that area. And then when they decided to do so, they were already too late. And my fear for a lot of businesses are they're not going to see the opportunity that's in front of us for what it is. There's never been a time that people have connected and researched and made an effort to be on the internet and be digitally, socially connected. So if you don't think that social media, digital marketing is a space that your business can thrive in, then you might as well not reopen. But if you're someone that says, hey, I'm going to own this space, I'm going to get ahead of it, you can connect with the world just in your bedroom. I mean, really, you can. So this is really an opportunity. In our next episode, we're going to dive into that and talk about some of the things you can do to get started. For those that have already started, what you can do to kind of ramp up your digital marketing. And for those that think they have it all figured out, we're going to tell you why our platform has grown in the last 3 years to be the number one platform in the area, and what you can do that we're doing that's going to take you to the next level. But you talked about this being a business and how they, have made an effort to try to figure out what the next episode is and the next means of getting cash into the Culvers. And this is probably the perfect time to introduce this, because there is so many people. I mean, if I was one of the executive producers and I was unsure about this show, and when they started broadcasting the previews and it says going to air April 13th, and then I learned that all these states started to stay at home, I would have been like, okay, we're going to have an opportunity to connect with an audience that's just sitting there waiting for the next season. When a lot of times throughout the country, it's the time when people are starting to get outdoors and are starting to get active, and we naturally see a shift in people's viewing habits. So I think that's really been an opportunity for this show to take place. And as I was watching the show, there was one moment that really kind of just stood out to me. And it was, well, first off, Savannah. I love how the show always does a really good job. They introduce the characters, and then they use a character to introduce a plot line. And just before she came on, a character introduced as, I'm not here for drama, I'm here to find love. And then Savannah came on, and the music, what we don't see, what they don't see and what we see is the undertones that the executive producers put in this show. I mean, they add music, they add transitions, they put clips together to really steer the audience into kind of creating our own narrative using the content they have in front of them. When you saw her come out and the music and the beat and her first couple interactions with people, did you feel that maybe she's the villain in this episode or in this season?
I'm not hot on Savannah, honestly. I do agree that with a show like this, you're at the mercy of the editors and the producers. And like you said, the music plays a huge part in how they frame you. But she, right off the bat, like she's one of those people who I could tell right away, like she's used to being like the hottest girl in the room, and she's used to guys. And she even said that. She's like, well, for me, basically, like guys come to me and then I just weed them out from there. And I was just like, okay. And then she said that thing about how I'm not just in it for looks. If I wanted looks, I would just go back to my modeling agency. And I'm just like, okay, we get it. You're hot. All right, let's move on. Like, I was so not a fan of her. And I think she has a large head. I mean, she's beautiful. She's fit. That's great. But right away, I was just like, girl, you need some humble pie. Like, I do think there's a possibility she could be the villain. We'll see. You never know.
Breanna, as you were watching the show, did you see the episode? Did you see the section where she was sitting down, and I think she was sitting down where she asked, I think it was his name, Mel. She asked him to produce his beatbox. Do you remember that part of the episode?
Oh, yeah,
Michael
yeah.
Todd.
Was it Michael?
It was Michael Todd. His name was.
Okay, so
It takes me like 4 weeks to learn their names.
one of you has a cheat sheet in front of you, don't you?
No, I don't. I don't know any. I know barely any of their names. I only know Savannah because she was so full of herself.
Oh, and she stood out. So she sat down with Michael, right? And they were sitting side by side. And she was camera right, he was camera left, and she asked him to produce his best beatbox, right? And for those that watch the show, I mean, I didn't even know what a beatbox was. I mean, I think what it is where you basically
Hey, do something. Go, hey Siri, and ask your phone to do it.
Really?
Yeah. Go say here, I'll do it. Hey Siri.
Yeah, you do it. I'm interested now.
Beatbox.
Cats and boots and cats and boots and cats and boots. I can do this all day. Cats and boots and 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 cats.
All right. So for those that tried that at home, I don't think you're probably getting the same reaction that I am. But so they were sitting there. She asked him to do this, and he did it. I thought it was, just off the cuff. First night, a couple drinks in. I think he did a pretty fair job. But he followed up by saying, when she said, that was nice, I like that. That was great. He asked her, followed up and says, I like your lips. And he kind of leaned in a little bit. And she kind of says, paused, and she goes, well, thank you. And then he went, well, don't you like my lips? And then the next scene, she's talking about how she's already had to dodge a kiss. And I think that is, I think that's what makes this episode a little bit different, is we're going to see a lot of that take place, where normally when you watch The Bachelor and Bachelorette, it's 25, 20, 15 people competing for the heart of one person. Now we have a mixture of 8 females and 12 males, and they have the opportunity to kind of get multiple relationships going and kind of choose, their lines. And when I saw that part of the episode and I saw her reaction, his reaction, and, she basically, shunned him off, or she dodged a kiss, right? Do you feel that these characters in this show, when they're presented with this environment, do you feel that they're pressured to fast track some of the relationships, or what their natural progression would be out in the real world? I saw throughout the show, there was one individual where there was a couple that was in the tub or in a hot tub together, and the guy just flat out came out and said it. He goes, hey, we're limited on time. Can we kiss? And, I just normally you wouldn't see that in the everyday world. So, I mean, if you ever envisioned yourself being on the show and thought about how you might change your relationship connections.
Yeah, Carrie and I have actually talked about this. So I would be the girl that's crying all the time.
I would be the girl that was like, I'm just here to get drunk and eat food and travel to places. That would be me. I just be like, you're cool, you're neat, you're fine. I'm just gonna be over here drinking and traveling. All right.
So do you either you think that you would fall in the trap of falling in love with someone on the show?
Look, I think that this show is, they do a really good job. And this is part of the magic of the show, is that the producers and the magic of The Bachelor, they make this special little world where the outside world seems so non-existent and far away. And so I'm not saying that if I was in this situation, I'm married, so thank God I never have to date again in my life. I thank my husband every time. I'm like, thank you for ending the dating cycle for me. I'm so glad. But I have thought, if I was in this situation, and yeah, I think so, because you get caught up in it. And if that's the only male I've seen in 6 weeks, yeah, I mean, he starts to look real good, no matter like if if he's that great or not. And then you get in the real world, and sometimes they aren't as things seem. And I do think you have to fast track things. Would I date someone for 8 weeks and then accept a proposal in real life? No way. Like, but because of this show, it's such a different world that it's hard to process. And let's be real, these people are in their early to mid 20s. You know, they aim for that demographic, and your brains haven't fully developed at that time. So yeah, 20, college, Carrie would have done something, of course. Yeah, heck yeah.
Mhm. Plus, I think there's this like competition element to it. Like you want to win.
And you talk about, the relationships fast tracking, over the 24 seasons of Bachelor, we've seen a handful of proposals, right? You guys have any idea how many of those proposals where the couples are still together in the Bachelor?
The Bachelorette has a better ratio of who they've picked actually being with them. The Bachelor, not so good, because even like Jason Mesnick and Ari, like those were their second choices. So even though they're still together, that wasn't technically the winner. So I think the Bachelor, it's only like one, and
Yeah.
it's Sean Lowe, because he's like uber like Christian, and like they didn't like do the fantasy suite. They slowed it down. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why they're together, because they slowed it down.
So you're right. The only one that made a proposal and is still together is Sean Lowe and Catherine. But as far as
Yeah.
relationships that are active that met through the show, Colton is still in a relationship, but that wasn't the proposal. What didn't air on the show. So that raises the question. When you look at males and their choices for who they choose to be with as life partners, do you think females just have it together better?
Males
Bree
are
and I have
with their
discussed
brain.
Bree and I have talked about this on my podcast, haven't we, Bree?
We have. That's why I'm laughing.
Do you want to say we share similar views? Do you want to share?
Sure. Males don't think with their brains.
It's true.
Okay.
Brandon's just like,
Well,
no comment.
how do you argue that? So do you feel that more of the females go into this looking for a long-term relationship?
Yes.
I think the females just tend to know what they want more. I think, I'm not trying to make this sexist, but I think males can be distracted by what's fun in the moment, or what is, I don't know. And we saw this with Ari and Jason, and like Ari 100% should have picked Lauren. Everyone could see that, but I think it messed with his brain when Becca's boyfriend came back and he had maybe he will lose Becca. I think that messed with his brain. And because there was a possibility of losing her, he was like, oh, you know what I mean? So I think that guys, it's easier to mess with their heads and really determining what they want. I think women, at least in the concept of this show, have a tendency to be able to zone in more on what they're wanting and be able to place that with the person and their qualities.
Yeah, and when you look at who got the first impression rose on Bachelorette seasons, more often than not, the Bachelorette ends up with whomever she gave the first impression rose to, whereas on the opposite end, that's almost never been the case, I think.
Yeah, spot on, Bree.
So by a show of an I vote, I guess, do you prefer watching The Bachelor or The Bachelorette?
It's tough.
I like them both for different reasons. I like The Bachelor because I think that having so many women together brings a different dramatic element. But I also like, just a little bit. And I do like The Bachelorette too, because I feel like, well, I mean, it's fun it's a whole different dynamic, and I feel like I maybe relate to The Bachelorette more being female. So I think they both have their merits. One of my favorite seasons was Hannah B's season, and that was the Bachelorette season, but I also loved Sean Lowe's season of The Bachelor. So yeah, it's a toss-up. I like them for different reasons.
For me, it really depends on the lead, honestly. I think the lead in both situations carries the show. And I think they're very strategic about the lead that they pick. the lead has to have a good backstory, but then the lead also has to be able to really articulate their feelings, and they need to be able to verbalize what they're going through. And I think some of the people that haven't been picked as the lead, it's because Bachelor producers know that person would have struggled with articulating their feelings. But it's the lead's job to walk us through this journey, and they need to pick someone who can do that. So people who have been strong leads, I tend to enjoy their show. Hannah B was a strong lead, so I liked her season a lot. Becca Kufrin wasn't exactly a strong lead, but she had such a good story, they had to pick her. So the people who are not as strong of leads, I tend to just, and it goes male or female, it really depends. But if someone can really walk me through the story and really be a strong lead, I'm all there for that, no matter what, Bachelor or Bachelorette.
No, Carrie, I think you're right. There's been a lot of times throughout this show where the lead has really been able to carry the show. And one thing when I watch, reflecting back on that video podcast that Lauren and Ari are doing, and I'm sure both of you guys are going to check it out. They've done 8 shows now, I think, and they do one a week. But one thing that Laura asked Ari was about Lauren asked Ari about how he expressed his feelings through the show. And he flat out came out and said, he goes, well, the lead has an EP. There's an executive producer that their job is to be with the lead 24/7. They're in the car, they're shopping with them weeks before the show starts. They're there helping pick out clothes. They're there the entire time. And that person really becomes their person. And even though that the EP is assigned to that lead, I think the team at Bachelor, the producers, they try to align the best EP up to that lead, and they coach them through a lot of it. And one thing that we don't see, we don't see on TV, but we always see that the first rose ceremony ends in the morning. And one thing that he said, that his rose ceremony that he had that first night took him 8 hours to eliminate the handful of girls that he did. And he said, what I did is I went out there, I eliminated 3 of them, and I went back and I sat down my EP, and we discussed the next one. And Colton, I guess, had some similar issues where his first night took him a long time, because I think, like you said, Carrie, the guy, I don't think really goes into it the first night processing it. I'm here for a relationship. They just kind of go into it. And I think the female, she's checking her boxes. She's eliminating people each and every one. But I think that's where we don't recognize that there's someone there. Now, what I also learned was when it gets down to the final 4 contestants, they are each given their own EP. And I think that as I watched the show over the last couple of years, and I've started to recognize that it seems like in those final weeks, all of the characters become stronger. And I don't want to say they become stronger as a character, but it just seems like they become more thought out. Their dialogue, their seriousness about the show comes more in tune. And you might naturally think that's because of the progression, but I also have to think it's part of it because I think these EPs are right there, challenging them. They're working with them, and they start to separate the individuals from being in a group setting. So another trivia question for you: who is the only individual to appear on The Bachelorette twice, and in both episodes became the runner-up?
Nick Viall.
Yeah. What's your thought?
Can't stump me.
What's your thought on him as a character? I mean, first off, they brought him back for the second show, and now did he eventually become? He didn't become a bachelor, did he?
Yeah, he did.
He did become a bachelor, and then he was also on. Yeah, he was in seasons 10 and 11. He was in seasons 10 and 11. He was in Bachelor in Paradise in season 3, and then he was the Bachelor in season 21, and then he became on Dancing with Stars for season 24. So, I mean, he was essentially on the show from early 2014 all the way through 2017. So his character on national television developed over, multiple years. Do you think that when you see some of these characters go from show to episode to show, that them as individuals mature? Or do you think that an individual like him, his storyline stayed pretty consistent throughout it?
I think he's changed. I personally, and I know this is controversial because some people are not Nick fans. I love Nick. And I think that he's grown a lot from when he was on Andy's season. And I think he's evolved to who he is now, and even through when he was the Bachelor. And that's really all I want from these people is I want them to be able to, this is like an unrealistic thing. Nobody goes through this where they go through this huge dramatic thing and then they have to watch it back and millions of people have opinions about them and about their love story. I mean, it's so unnatural. But from this, you should be able to get introspective and to have some realizations about yourself. When you watch it back, be like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that to Andy after the final rose that she, you know what I mean? When he had that huge thing, if you didn't love me, why did you make love to me? You know, that huge thing he did. And it's like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And going forward. So all I want from these people is that they get introspective and that they can grow from it. And that's what I hated about Luke P from Hannah B's season, is that even after when he did his Men Tell All, I don't think he had gained anything from watching himself. It's like, he couldn't see any of his faults. He didn't apologize for anything. It's like, dude, you're a young guy. Just own up to the fact that you made some mistakes and show some growth from it. And he like refused to acknowledge any of that. So when it comes to Nick, I do think he's grown. I think he's funny. And I think he's honest about his shortcomings. He's been very honest about the stuff that he has done wrong. And I appreciate that.
I do not want to even have to process the idea of having to watch my life on TV and see all the things I would do wrong.
Yeah.
It would be.
See, it's so weird.
It would be life shattering, probably. So let's talk about
what
this.
What do you think, Bree?
Oh, I love Nick. And
I thought so.
He actually has his own like video podcast, the Bio Files, and it's really good. So I think he's really
whoa. Guys, write this down. Breanna does not give credit a lot of times. So when she does, it's definitely earned.
Oh boy.
I never get credit. Never.
You get credit all the time.
No, I don't.
I think I'm going home on the 2-on-1.
Oh.
So,
okay. Overall, what was your thoughts on last night's show? Did you guys watch it all the way through? Did you DVR it? I mean, where are you at with it? Where do you stand with it? Are you watching it next Monday, Breanna?
Oh yeah. I mean, now I'm invested, so I have to see what happens, and they hook you just enough to keep you coming back, and so yeah, I'll come back for my fix. It's an excuse to sit and drink wine.
Is there a character or two that kind of sticks out in your mind that you want to see progress far in the show?
I can't remember his name because, like I said, it takes me forever. But the guy with the really long hair and the hat, I liked him.
Sheridan,
yeah.
From Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I thought he was really unique, and I like his singing style. I really could do with less John Mayer wannabes, but I feel like he deviates from that mold enough that I can watch him.
So early in the show, they showed him in his car.
Yes.
I mean, for some women, and my wife and I were quickly chatting about this, is for some women that is a total turn off, and for some that is a total turn on. Turn on, turn off, Breanna?
A turn on.
Really?
Bree, no, stop it.
I like the homeless look. You know that.
So is it because he's aspiring to be something and he's taking sacrifice and that's it?
Yeah.
Or
I think that, I mean, I would take somebody like that over the Instagram model follower, need followers, all polished wannabe type people. Like, I feel like he's doing what it takes to make it, and he's working hard, and I value hard work. So good for him.
Well, I will say he at least should get a little bit bigger vehicle, because in the last clip where he's in the back of the trunk, I just think to myself, how can he sleep comfortable? Because he's about the size of the car. What about you, Carrie?
Maybe he has a tent and he like camps under the stars or something romantic.
Oh, he's in the southern part of the United States. So that's possible. Carrie, was there someone that stood out to you?
So first of all, I am going to watch because I don't have a lot of my things to do are limited. So just by the fact of what's going on in the world, I'm definitely going to watch. And I'm also going to watch because I want to know what the prize is. Like I said at the beginning, I'm still confused if the prize is love or if it's like a record deal. So I want to know what the prize is. So I got to watch to the end just to see that. I also liked Sheridan. I do think he has a genuineness to him. He did seem different from everyone. I love John Mayer, so I love me a John Mayer wannabe. So Ryan, I think it was, who sang Gravity, and I love Gravity. When he sang that with what's her name, I forget her name right now, but I love him. He's got like a John Mayer, like Shawn Mendes. He's like John Mayer and Shawn Mendes like had a baby, and I am so here for it. So, and I just think he's really talented. He was playing the guitar really beautifully. So I'm here for Ryan and Sheridan, I would say, are probably my two faves.
So as I was looking at some of the cast members on this show, I'm just thinking of someone that's in a content creation model. If we were to put together this show, what some of the questions I'd want to ask myself. Well, first off, the show is about music, right? It's about love and it's about creating connections. So when you start to process those three things, how do you intertwine it all and how do you find the perfect cast? And we see with Bachelor in Paradise and the other Bachelor Nation shows that they kind of just, the storyline kind of rolls forward and continues. With this particular show, they had to start all over, which for a lot of reasons could be really good. And a lot of reasons could really kind of just fade out. This could be a one and done season, or it could be something that just reinvents itself and you have a whole nother means of getting your Bachelor fill. But what I was really impressed by was, well, first off, the age demographic. There is people on this show that are in their early 20s, 20, 21, but there's also a few guys that are in their mid to late 30s. Now, that's one thing is whenever you pull in the age demographic is, someone that's 21 and someone that's 38, there's 17 years in there. There is a lot of time in between the two that you kind of have to process, and there's a lot of maturity that takes place. Then you look at the fact that there is women and men at different career points. There's some that are inspiring to do this. There are some that already have other professions. But then there's this whole thing of genre. And what I was really impressed with throughout this is there was a huge mix in genre. So these people coming into the show, for example, let's look at Julia for a second. She's someone that is 27. She's female. She's blonde hair. She's white. She's from Pennsylvania. And she likes pop. Okay. Now, is she going to be naturally attracted to someone with dark hair that is an alternative, maybe an R&B, and lives in the western part of the United States? Because there's so much cultural difference there. There's so many attraction difference there. But music really ties to our core strings of who we are as individuals. So when I looked at the overall cast, and I saw the mix in genre, I saw the mix in the people's where they are from across the nation, their ethnicity. Those are all things that really just kind of stood out. And I think the producers, I'd like to know how they went through this process. Were they looking for people that would have connections, or were they looking for people that had the ability to be musicians?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see moving forward what they really go for here. I don't know. I agree with you. I think they ran the gamut with people and the different genres. I'm glad they did that. I don't want to see a bunch of tons of country artists and then or all pop artists. I want to see a mixture of it. And so I was glad of that too. And I'm excited, but I do think that two things are very connection based. One is music and one is dancing. We see the Dancing with the Stars, and those people are very connected, like on an emotional level. It's like when you're dancing with a partner, when you're singing with a partner. We saw it with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born. It's just this very soulful connection that you have. So I can see how it can accelerate a relationship.
All right. So we're going to have to tune in. We'll have to see how this unfolds. I believe this season is only going to be 6 weeks. So it'll take us through hopefully the rest of this pandemic. But the one thing I guess I want to kind of just get your guys' input on as the experts in Bachelor Nation is about this next season of The Bachelorette. I guess the first question I would ask both of you, where were you in 2014? When the clock struck midnight in 2014, where were you?
I was in college.
I have no idea.
It's only 6 years ago, Bree.
2014?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
hold on. Okay, I was at my house asleep, probably.
I was in
Okay.
college, so I was probably out at a bar.
All right. So fast track 5 days later. It's January 5th, 2014. It's the season premiere of the 32-year-old famous professional soccer player from Miami, Florida,
Oh,
Pablo, right?
Juan Pablo.
Yeah, we all know Juan Pablo. Who was on that show that is going to be in Bachelor Nation in the next season of The Bachelorette?
Eric Crawley.
Yeah. So her story with Bachelor started 6 years ago when she was on that show. And since then, she was on 2 seasons of Bachelor in Paradise. She was on the Bachelor Winter Games. And now she is on season 16. Now, we haven't seen her in 2 years. 2 years ago, she was on the season premiere of the Winter Games. First question I have for you is, why do you think they didn't pick a contestant from the last season of Bachelor?
Nobody liked any of them.
Yeah, they all sucked. That's why.
It's
Now,
so
is
Carrie
that
and I follow a lot of online stuff related to The Bachelor, and the overall consensus was this latest cast of women was just way off their normal. They did not do a good job.
They were too young. They were all too young, way, way, way too young. And none of them had a really great, compelling storyline. I mean, honestly, they need a lead. And like I said before, they need someone with a storyline. They need someone that America's going to like and invest in, but then they need someone who can carry the show. It's sometimes hard to get all 3 of those. None of the girls from this season had that. The only one who I think might have was Kelsey. And I think she still has promise in Paradise and whatnot. But none of the other girls, Hannah Ann, none of them, not Victoria, definitely not Victoria, not Maddie, none of them are even close to being Bachelorette potential, I think.
so? Why do you think they went ahead and picked someone that hasn't been on The Bachelor in 6 years, hasn't been on in Bachelor Nation in the last 4 years? And is there any other characters or contestants that you think maybe would have been on the same radar?
So a couple of things here, I think. One, she has a story. We know Claire from Juan Pablo, and we saw everything that went down with that. She has a great story, the way she walked out on Juan Pablo and the way she handled that. And then also seeing her in Paradise. She famously went to Paradise and left in this dramatic fashion because no one was there for her. Does anyone remember this?
Yep.
Brianna, do you remember this? She
Oh,
made
yeah.
this big speech at the rose ceremony that's like, I just want someone to be there for me. And she ended up leaving. Then we saw her come back to Winter Games, and she had this weird relationship with Benoit, and she ended up leaving there without anyone. But then her and Benoit get engaged after the show. I mean, she has had this whole arc of a character development, and we've seen her be crazy. We've seen her stand up for herself. We've seen her fall in love. We've seen all these different, I mean, we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of Claire Crawley. So she has a story. Number 2, we've seen her personality is dynamic enough to carry the show, hands down, because we've seen such a huge character development from her. And the third one is they didn't have any other good options. And to be honest with you, they really need to pivot the show to older people. You know, the cast keeps getting younger and younger, these 20, 21, 22, 24-year-olds. Like, I mean, they needed to make a pivot and to bring some validity to this process because it's just been an influencer tryout for the last couple of years. And it's annoying to me. It's annoying to everyone else. So those are the big reasons why I think the 3 big things there. She was older. We've seen her character development, and she's going to be able to carry the show 100%.
Well put.
So 6 years ago, she was 33. Okay.
Yep.
In the terms of being on the show, that's already pretty mature. Is that fair to say?
Yep. Yeah.
So here she is, 39, as the lead, being on the show and being part of Bachelor Nation for the last 6 years or better. How do you anticipate the show is going to serve her? And I ask that question is because she's 39 years old. And I mean, she's at a point in her life where, you know, she wants to find love. She really does. So I think she's going into the show for all the right reasons. My concern is because of her history and her walking out on both seasons of The Bachelor in Paradise, her exit and strong exit from Bachelorette in season 18, is she going to go into this season with really a checkbox, a checklist, and she's going to want to really be challenging these guys? And when I looked at the guys when they first premiered the cast, the age group on that cast was, it didn't really fall in line. Generally speaking, in our culture, you don't see women dating people that are younger than you. You just don't see it.
Have you not seen how Stella got her groove back?
No, I haven't.
I heard that they are recasting.
Okay,
I also heard that as well.
I saw that last night when I was watching the show, is that they had advertisement for do you want to date the next Bachelorette? And I'm thinking to myself, well, they already introduced the cast, but then at the same time, we know that the show has been postponed indefinitely because of the pandemic. So is there certain people on the show that were cast that now can't be on the show because of their obligations or work obligations that are having recasted? Or do you think that the producers saw the feedback that Bachelor Nation gave them and said, hey, give her a real chance at love by giving her people in the same age group that have had the same life experiences that she's had?
I think that they are responding to public feedback, and I think they would have done it regardless of the pandemic? No, but I think the pandemic gave them the opportunity to do to make this change, and they are taking advantage of it. That's my
when they released the names and the bios of her guys, I was really disappointed. There was a lot of like 25-year-olds, and no offense, there's nothing that says that she can't be very happy with the younger man, but I think they need to put some older guys in there, hands down. I was really disappointed by their choices, and this pandemic is giving them a chance to fix that. Because if they make this statement by having an older bachelorette and then they make the flaw of having all these like young 20-year-old guys for her, America's going to be pissed because they want to see her happy. America wants to see her find love. And if they don't give her a true shot, I'm going to be mad. I think everyone's going to be mad.
Yeah, and as much as we like all know that, like Branden was talking about earlier, that the show is scripted to a degree and very controlled, there's still like a part of us that wants to believe that this is real, and so at least entertain us a little bit and have some viable options.
Yeah, absolutely. So she is officially the oldest bachelorette. Previously, Rachel was the oldest bachelorette. Rachel Lindsay, who was 32 at the time when her season aired, which I believe was in, I think it was 3 or 4 seasons ago. So this is quite different for Bachelor to have someone that's 39 as the lead. But she has a history. I think what she's going to do is she's going to pull in a lot of people that maybe didn't follow the show 4 or 5 years ago. As we looked at some of those ratings, and we saw that over the last 4 or 5 years, the ratings have fallen off for a number of reasons. Streaming services, people just cutting the cord, whatever the nature of that be. But where do you think her season will end? Just not knowing the cast, not knowing the characters, do you think she'll find love or not?
It's too early for me to tell without getting a better look at the guys, but I really hope so. I really do. I think she wants it. There's no doubt that she wants it, and I hope so. We'll see.
I'm always a skeptic, but I like to root for love, so I'll say that yes, she will find love.
Breanna's a skeptic who loves love.
It's true.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody wants a little hope in their life, right?
Especially now, yeah.
Absolutely. So in your podcast, Carrie, do you think you're going to be following this story and plot line of Listen to Your Heart in the next few weeks?
I haven't decided yet. There's a possibility I might, but I don't know. I'm still kind of like hate watching it. You know how you hate follow people or hate like their pictures on Instagram or something? Like I'm hate watching show. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But I do think that when The Bachelor kicks off again, BIP, I'll be recapping those for sure because those are my jam. I love those. So does Bree.
Yeah.
And you put out a podcast, you said, every week, right?
Yep, sure do. Candidly Speaking. You can find it on iTunes or on Stitcher or on Google Play.
And we'll put all those links for you in our
really
article.
Good. And if I say it's really good, it means something, as you said earlier. So it's really good.
How's this podcast been, Bree?
Nah.
See, what I was telling you. So, Carrie, before we get going here, I mean, for the audience that's listening and, inspired by what you're doing out there, what's some of the, most recent topics that you've covered in your podcast? Obviously, people will be jumping over to the description, checking out those links. Is there one or two episodes that they should really kind of gravitate towards you to get a better personality of who you are and what you inspire to do? Or is there an episode or a guest that you had on that just kind of really is the flavor of what your podcast is all about?
Yeah, great question. So I recently had on a really good friend of mine. His name's Alex Mortensen, and he is my husband's best friend from childhood. And his episode is fantastic. He was a D1, baseball player in college and was really successful in baseball and kind of took the path that, he kind of figured he would. And then a couple years into it, decided he wasn't happy and decided to give that up and decided to pursue a career in acting. And now he's an actor and a model and a producer in San Francisco. And he's going to be making a move to Los Angeles, hopefully. But he has amazing insight, and that episode really goes full spectrum about what the show is really about. It's just about being a human and the ups and downs that we learn from our paths. I'm really about connection and storytelling. The journalist in me loves to tell stories, but I think we're all more alike than we are different. And the only way we can truly see that, is to have conversations with one another and connect with one another. So that's really all I'm trying to do. I meet so many people throughout my life because of what I do, because of what my husband does. And I want other people to be able to hear those conversations. There were so many times I would meet interesting people and I'd be like, oh, I wish someone else could hear this because it's so powerful. So this is my way of sharing those conversations with the world and hoping that people, connect with it, and hopefully that it just leaves a mark on them and inspires them to do something else with their life, whatever it is.
Awesome. Well, Carrie, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a long podcast, but I think for those that are with us, it's been pretty exciting. We kept the conversation going here. And that's one thing that always been our goal when we set these podcasts. People always ask me when they come on is, how long is this going to be? And I always tell them it might be 5 minutes, it might be an hour. It really depends on how well we carry the conversation, how well the content is, and just as long as we can, just have fun with it. And I think that's, for those that are listening, it's important to know that we're doing this to help spread awareness of some of the things that are happening in our community. There's so many individuals, so many people in different spaces right now, and they all have a story. And our platform has always been about telling those stories. We are a strong group of individuals that are really strong storytellers. And we built this platform not for our own sense. We really built it because we just know that there has been this huge gap in our area that does not embrace digital technology. And my fear has always been, is if something doesn't own the digital space in rural central Wisconsin, we will just kind of fall off the map. We will become, the black hole in the region. And I think over the last few years, we've really built a digital platform that brings our local community together. And our goal now is to use the content that we have, the community that we have, the audience that we have, and really try to propel others in our region to be able to connect with not only you, but connect to people beyond our own borders. And I think as a country, as a region, as a community, if we inspire to promote those that are around us, we're going to see our own position as a society lift. There's so much that you can do from your basement or inside your garage to really grow who you are as an individual. There's been so many businesses in our region that have started in people's garages, have started in people's cellars. Our own, for a fact, has started in a cellar. And today we're in a cellar again. A little nicer than that, next to an oil tank. But that's why we're here. So if you like what we're doing, hit the subscribe button, follow our page, and we'll continue to bring that conversation to you. Carrie, thank you for being on the show. Breanna, thank you for staying with me through this journey. And guys, we'll continue to bring the news and coverage that matters most to you. Until we meet again, I'm Branden Bodendorfer on Focus. Have a great day.